Thank you so much, sir, for giving us a real picture of the IT sector of the India. And I'm sure that the facts and figures that you have shared will help the IT, computer and electronic engineers in the audience to streamline their research to the benefit of the country. I may like to tell the audience that you may keep tweeting at hashtag ThinkIndia, hashtag Ahvan18 and tag ThinkIndia. I now request our next speaker, Sri Jaswinder Ahuja, to please come and enlighten the audience.
Good morning. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Think India for giving me the opportunity to come speak to you this morning and share this platform. And Dr. Rai, who facilitated this event and is the sponsor of this event, and personally helped get me here. When I was invited, I did a little bit of, excuse me, I did a little bit of reading up on what Think India was and what this event is all about. And my first reaction was that I'm the wrong person to be invited for this event. The reason is, I think India is intended to ensure you don't do exactly what I did in my life, which is go work for a multinational company. So I thought, I'm the wrong person, why am I being invited? And I said, well, I have the opportunity, so let's make the most of it. While I do work for a multinational company, I have been very actively involved in the last several years with many India-centric startups. One of them, many of them, in fact, as advisor, as mentor in that capacity. And I'm also actively involved in a couple of the incubators that are meant for technology companies. One of them is Electropreneur Park, which is, Dr. Rai and STPI are very key players in that ecosystem. And so by virtue of that, I do get to see a lot of companies, what they are trying to do, the problems they are trying to solve, and maybe I can offer a perspective from that vantage point that might tickle your own imaginations in terms of the kinds of things that you could look towards doing or you could aspire towards doing. Right? And of course, if this was a Make in India topic, it's a lot in the world to come and manufacture in India, and there is strategic relevance from an India standpoint as well, because it bootstraps the manufacturing ecosystem, it creates jobs and things of that nature. Make for India becomes a slightly different twist on that, right? I mean, what you are now trying to do is you're trying to look at what are the unique needs and opportunities in India, and how do we bring to bear interesting solutions to those challenges, right? And when it comes to opportunity, right? They often say that a problem is an opportunity looking for a solution, right? A problem is an opportunity looking for a solution. And I think when we look around us, we know that we do have lots and lots of problems, and by extension, it means that we have lots and lots of opportunities of things that we could do. So, how many of you are PhD students? Okay, good. How many of you are master's students who are doing some research? Very good. I think all of you will relate to the fact that the biggest challenge in doing a PhD thesis, if you will, or a master's thesis, is identifying the problem to solve. Is that correct? The solution becomes easy. I know I've done a master's with thesis. I didn't have the privilege of doing a PhD, but whenever I spoke to my friends and colleagues who were doing a PhD, they said in a typical 3 or 4 year time that they spend at university doing a PhD, more than 2 years is spent trying to figure out what is the problem to solve. And I think that is an important factor in life too, right? If you're thinking about Make for India, question is, what is the problem that is worth solving? That's the first thing. So I'll come to some specific examples to bring this to life for you. Now, before I do that, I want to tell you two things. Number one, I think in today's context, being an entrepreneur is easier than it's ever been in the past, right? It's easier than it's ever been in the past. There's a lot of things that have happened around us in the ecosystem that makes it easy, that's lowered the barriers of entry, and that's notwithstanding the effort that the current government is putting in terms of ease of business. I think there's just a lot of stuff that's happened in the environment besides that. And so I have a simple formula that says that if you want to do a startup, you need three things. Number one, you need a lot of initiative, right? That's obvious, right? Once you identify the problem, then you've got to be innovative. And I think the real value in anything you do lies in the innovation, right? The manner in which you solve the problem, the unique solution you bring to the problem. And the third is taken care of by the internet. Because once you know what problem you want to solve, and you're looking for technologies, or you're looking for state of the research and what's been done and what's available and so on and so forth, simple internet research will provide you with more information that you can realistically digest, and it provides you with almost anything that you need. Now, the other things that I'm referring to in terms of what's changed in the channel is, for example, you don't have to worry about the logistics of distribution today, right? Once you build a product, for example, for the consumer market, a lot of people in the past could not be successful as startups because they did not know how to take that product to market, and you needed to be bigger and have scale and so on and so forth. Today, courtesy Flipkart and Amazon and things like that, right? You could be operating from your Barsati in the house and be able to build a product and distribute it, right? So there's lots that's happened that's made it easier for us to get into business. The last point before I get into some specific examples is, I do believe that it is possible to do well in business and do good for society at the same time, right? By solving real problems that need to be solved. Okay? And again, I'll illustrate that with some of the examples. So let's get into the meat of what I wanted to share with you. If I look around, and these are problems and challenges that we face in India, but by extension, you can say there are other parts of the world that face these challenges also. And the first of these challenges is clean drinking water, right? Do you agree? Access to clean drinking water is a problem in this country, right? And that is the reason for a lot of the health-related issues and many other problems that we face. Are you aware of the water ATM? You are, right? So now that's a wonderful innovation. And that's an innovation that brings together the fields of chemistry, electronics, and a few other things to create this water ATM where you can get clean drinking water at a very, very nominal charge. And so there is a level of being responsible. It doesn't require big investment on the part of the people who can't afford it. Like most of us can have a water purifier at home and things like that, but there are others who can't afford it, right? So that's a wonderful example to start with of a unique problem in India, not just from a technology standpoint. It's a need, it's a price point issue, it's an access issue. So it's a unique problem for India with a unique solution in India. Do you also know another market in the world or another location in the world where the water ATM is a big hit? Which one? Africa. Similar problems, huge problems. So here is an entrepreneur from Pune that created the water ATM. He created it because he saw in the villages around him in Maharashtra was a real problem. He deployed it there, tested it, and now he's gone global because there are the likes of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and others who are funding him. So the same solution can be deployed across all of Africa as well. Is this something that you really think a Western multinational would have even thought of doing?
No.
Right? And the reason is that most global businesses today are only focusing on meeting the needs of the first billion or the first 2 billion people in the world, right? The people who have the affordability to buy products that are priced at, $50, $100, $300. They are not taking care of the needs of the people who need stuff at 5 cents, 3 cents. But there are needs and there are opportunities in solving those problems, right? If we look back in time, in again a few other proof points of this innovation in our own environment, there are two wonderful innovations that have come in India. One is from an FMCG company, and the other is from a telecom company. A lot has been written about them, right? Business school case studies and things like that. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry? No. Patanjali is much more recent. No, I'm talking about the innovation of the shampoo sachet. Right? It's a packaging innovation, but it's an innovation that uniquely meets the needs of the consumer in India. Can you guess what the second innovation is that I'm referring to? It's a telecom company. No. You guys have to go back and study history a little. It's called the Chota Recharge. The 10 rupee recharge, lifetime validity, free incoming calls. These are life-changing innovations. And by the way, the people who came up with these innovations, they are making a lot of money on this. I mean, the Hindustan Lever, one of the big growth drivers for their business is the sachets. And believe it or not, the sachet is something that the people at the so-called base of the pyramid love. But do you realize that per ml of shampoo, they pay more than what you and I pay because of the cost of packaging? But they're okay, because the problem is there is an aspiration, but the problem is of cash flow. Right? They can't afford to spend 120 bucks in buying a bottle of shampoo and keep it sitting there. But it's a luxury. Every once in a while, they want to use it. So, you know, there is no bounds to our creativity. There is no limit to where we can find these opportunities. Let me go on with a few more examples. I have a very long list here, and I'm sure time will not permit me to go through all of the examples, so I'm going to pick a few. World over, right, there is a lot of buzz right now about innovation in the automotive sector, right? And when we talk about innovation in the automotive sector from a global standpoint, the things that come to fore are, number one, electric cars, right? And who's the game changer in electric cars? There's an American company called Tesla. Everybody's heard about it, right? Fascinating company. And the other one we hear about is what? Autonomous driving. Okay? Do you really think autonomous driving is going to work in India? With the kind of chaotic traffic we have? I don't think so. Anyway, but if it does work in India, then it's a globally tested product, right? That's the other beauty of it. But you know what, when we think about automotive, when we think about urban mobility, there are lots of unique challenges and opportunities in the Indian context to create value. I'll give you a few examples, and these are real examples of products that companies have built or are building, right? That I'm directly involved with as a mentor, as an advisor, or something like that. First one is, you know that when we talk about urban mobility in India, electric vehicles is going to be the way to go. That's a given. But we are not just talking about electric cars. Right? We're not talking about the Teslas. The Tesla is whatever, $100,000 car. That's not the right solution for India. There is a need for cars, and yes, Mahindra and Tatas and all those companies are working on it. But we need beyond that. We need electric rickshaws to solve the last mile problem with the investment in urban urban transportation with things like metros and things like that. You'll still have the last mile problem. And the solution to that is electric rickshaws, number one, and electric bikes, both cycles and motorcycles. But you know what's the limiting factor with these? With all these electric vehicles today?
Charging station.
Charging. Beautiful. What is the problem with charging?
Limitation of time.
It takes time.
Yes.
And why is that a problem? Disposal is a problem. E-waste management, I'll come to that. Why is charging time a problem?
Because they suffer loss due to that.
Sorry?
Suffer loss due to that period.
Because during that period, the so-called rickshaw is not on the road and the person is not earning. And less distance. But there is so within the charging paradigm, there are multiple problems, right? Where do you charge from? Most of these people don't even have reliable electricity connection at home, right? Do charging stations exist in India?
No.
We need charging stations, right?
Yes.
Huge opportunity. What kind of charging stations do we need? Solar, very good. What else do we need? Battery technology is a much bigger investment, so I don't think that's really innovation in battery technology, yes, but battery technology is a bigger problem. Let's just focus on the charging problem. What else do we need in the charging solution?
Fast charging system should be.
Sorry?
Fast charging
Beautiful.
system.
Fast charging
At
system.
less cost.
We need a fast charging system and
Less cost. Because
less cost.
will
We
be
need a
high.
fast charging system based on solar, less cost. We need one more thing. Space is not such a big problem. Space ho jayega. There's plenty of places for that. But then in the charging paradigm, this is maybe a question that the engineers can answer.
That what else they will be provided during that?
There's one more thing in the charging process that is very important. You know what is the biggest, okay, so electric rickshaws, for example, the biggest operating cost is in replacing the batteries every, 1 year or so. 1 year. Why do they have to replace the battery every 1 year? What is the problem? What is the cost, biggest cost for that?
Because the chemical formulation.
No. Something that they do every day, that's the reason for it. Overcharging. Battery life is seriously impacted by overcharging. And the overcharging happens because they will put it for charging when they come home at night. It will overcharge, obviously, because it's charging all night. Then they will run the rickshaw for as long as the battery lasts, and then they're done for the day, right? Now, there's a company that I'm associated with that's building a charger which has fast charging capability, which has the intelligence that it can detect that the battery is 90% charged and it will stop charging. And it operates on solar, and it has ATM type capability, which means you go in there, you pay the money, and you can charge for as much money as you pay. And you can see the counter ticking down saying, I'm charging for 20 minutes or 20 rupees or whatever, right? You have, both the options are available. So you can pay 20 rupees and charge for 20 rupees, whatever happens in that, or you can charge for 20 minutes. You can choose whether you want to do it by time or by the amount of money. Now that is a very interesting product, and this gentleman has already bagged orders from both state governments, because state governments with the big push towards EV by 2030, right? I mean, charging infrastructure becomes a key need for that. So this person has bagged orders from state governments, from corporates, from other entities, and should be shipping his first 100 or so chargers before the end of 2018, right? And by the way, there is opportunity for dozens and dozens of these, right? No one, the market is going to be so huge that there isn't going to be just one player solving this problem. The second thing in automotive world is almost everybody world across is focused on four-wheelers. Good, India also has a lot of four-wheelers, but what do we have more than four-wheelers? Two-wheelers. These two-wheelers and the riders of the two-wheelers have unique needs. How many of you have a mobike or have ridden a mobike in Delhi in peak summer? Nobody's ridden a mobike in Delhi in peak summer? Wow. Okay, let me then share with you, I have done that. So let me share with you what it feels like. What's the outside temperature in Delhi in peak summers? 45 degrees. And by law, you're required to wear a helmet. What do you think is the temperature inside the helmet?
Much more than that.
Do you think that is even safe, medically safe for human beings? Okay.
Cooling helmet.
Sorry?
Cooling helmet is another. Cooling helmet.
Has somebody come up with a cooling helmet? Yes, they have. And it's not a cooling helmet, by the way.
It has some other word, I don't know it.
No, it's not a cooling helmet. There is a company based out of Bangalore called Blue Armor, and they've come up with a product called Blue Snap, which you can fit on top of your helmet. It's front facing, which does two things. Number one, it filters the air, so you're not breathing all the pollutants. And you see everybody with a white handkerchief on their face in Delhi. So they have come up with a product that purifies or filters the air so that you are getting pure air. And it's got a cooling mechanism where the temperature in your helmet is at least 10 degrees less than the temperature outside.
Wow.
Sells for 1,600 rupees. Do you think vast majority of two-wheeler owners will be tempted to buy that? 1,600 bucks for the comfort and convenience it gives you, not a bad deal, right? So again, there is unique needs and opportunities. And the challenge is in figuring out, all around us, every single day, if you're observant, if you're paying attention, if you're spending time out there and paying attention, every day you'll spot dozens of opportunities, right? And then the challenge is to figure out which ones you want to go after and how you want to solve the problem. Let me keep going. Which is the next one I want to talk about? Okay, energy. Right? Big problem in India. We don't have sufficient energy. We are still very reliant on fossil fuels, coal and gas and things like that. We know that we want to move towards renewable energy, which means what? Sources of renewable energy are? Hydro is one. What else? But hydro has huge capital investment and it has ecological consequences also. But what are the others? Solar, wind, and tidal. I said, right? That's hydro. Hydro is tidal. Yes, tidal. Yes, tidal. And what else? Geothermal. What else? Biogas. Right? Nuclear. Let's not go there. That's big boys game. Let's not go there. But you see, there are many others where we have great opportunity to play. Right? Great opportunity to play. Now, when you think about biofuels, that's a wonderful opportunity for what we would refer to as waste to wealth type effort, right? I mean, we have this pollution problem in Delhi every year because of crop burning in Haryana and Punjab and stuff like that. Could we now take all of that waste and harness that and create a virtuous cycle where the farmers are able to actually make some money off of it, so they're tempted not to burn it. We take that waste and we convert it to fuel, right? How many problems do we solve in one go? Real opportunity. The governments recognize this opportunity. And there was an event where Minister Nitin Gadkari was there, and they're actually going to the Ministry of Surface Transport is going to try to make sure that they're going to provide incentives for people to implement this project. Right? So you solve so many problems in one go with a solution like that. The other is solar. I want to talk about solar, right? Solar, again, when we talk about solar, we talk about grid connected or standalone solar plants. A lot of people have started to put rooftop solar installations in their house. Now, all of these are good, right? Grid connected is wonderful because you are looking at from the generation perspective. But the rooftop is, again, it's a money game, right? Those who can afford it and have homes big enough can do it. But there is a need for energy everywhere in the country. Now, if you think about the rural parts of the country, right? Rural parts of the country, they don't have reliable electricity. And we know that electricity, once you have electricity, you have internet. When you have internet, you have many other things. So if you think about education and progress and access to information and sort of social uplifting, we know that that can play a very vital role. But electricity is the first requirement, and the second one is perhaps internet connectivity or something like that. So how do you solve the electricity problem in the remote villages of India? We all know that extending the grid everywhere is extremely expensive. And even if you were to extend the grid, the challenge of reliability of power supply and all that stuff, there are so many other factors that determine whether reliable energy will be available to the end user or not. So there is a company called Durasta, again another company that I'm closely associated with. What they have done is that they have come up with a complete solution for rural electrification in remote areas. The generation is completely based on solar. So throughout the day, India is abundant solar. Throughout the day, solar energy is generated. You have battery technology to store it, right? Obviously, battery technology gets better, the solution gets better. Now, the next challenge is distribution. And how do you do it so that this is not a for free public utility, but something that somebody can build a business out of? So they've created a set of meters, both at the generation side as well as at the delivery side. And these meters have the concept of prepaid. So if I'm the operator, somebody can now start to run it as a business, right? Because if you were to provide electricity and then try to collect money later, there's no guarantee you'll get paid. Real problem happens even in the cities, right? For a variety of reasons. So if you have to make it a sustainable business, what they've done is, the person who's running this network, you go to him and you say, I need electricity, here is 30 rupees. He punches a bunch of things on his smartphone because it's all operated using a smartphone. And all of a sudden, the meter in your house shows that you have a remaining balance of 30 rupees and you can start using the electricity. And it starts to count down as you use electricity based on the rate that has been agreed to. And when it goes to zero, electricity is cut off. You can go pay another 30 rupees and get electricity for whatever time you need, right? They've implemented their first pilot and it's working like a charm. People are delighted. It has started to change their lives. They are now getting electricity when they need it, right? And it's reliable. And they are paying for it. I mean, as opposed to in the past where people are getting. See, the problem is if you get used to stuff for free, there is a lot of waste of natural resources. And I mean, I don't want to comment on. I'm over time. Okay, I'm over time. I'm being told I'm over time. That's why I said I won't get through my list of examples. I have a very, very long list of examples. So I'll make this the last one, right? Where was I? So, anything that's been given for free is not valued and always results in underutilization or misuse or waste of natural resources. I mean, we provide electricity to farmers for free. And what do? They end up running their pumps indefinitely. And rather than do them good, it does them harm because they have more crop-related problems because of over-irrigation rather than under-irrigation. So it's a waste of electricity and it hurts their productivity as well. Right? So responsible use of resources becomes very important. And these are the kinds of solutions that promote that responsible behavior as well. Right? So they're solving the problem and promoting the right behavior in the bargain. So I'll stop here. We're spending some time after the event. If you want to have a conversation, I'm happy to do that. But I'll leave you with this one last thought. If you look at all the problems and solutions I described, right, they are very relevant for India. But the beauty is that they address the needs of the remaining 6 billion people on the planet, right, that today's businesses are not addressing, which means this is white space opportunity. And tomorrow's business leaders are going to come from people who can address these problems in a scalable, sustainable, profitable manner. And that opportunity is very real. So once again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. Hopefully,